indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call?
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Administrator updates. Julie?
That would be Lori.
I'm sorry, Lori, I'm sorry. Administrator Lori Kyle, I'm sorry.
Good evening. I know this kind of thing we usually like to do in a regular meeting. However, our liability and physical damage insurance coverage renews March 1st. I just met with our provider yesterday with our renewal information. I did reach out to a competitor plan, met with them the day before. Otarma is who we have been with since 1992. You have a recent history of what our premium has been. Otarma is a group of Ohio townships that have pooled together for insurance coverages. That pool most years pays back a contribution to each township. The competitor was about $5,000 cheaper. However, with the claims experience we have had with Otarma, the wonderful customer service that we have had with Otarma, Otarma provides 3 opportunities for grants, $1,000 each, for utilization of Lexapol, keeping our policies up to date, a more grant to provide safety equipment. We usually let the road department use that. So my recommendation is to remain with Otarma for the 2024 into 2025 year. In the packet of information, there's all kinds of information for you about Otarma, the specific coverages, and the other services that they provide. They do send a risk management company here once a year to review to lower our risk. The fiscal officer and I met with a cyber risk consultant through Otarma. So for the additional cost and premium, they provide wonderful customer service. So my recommendation is to remain with Otarma.
We discussed that.
That was, we're all in agreement then. President McGurran would sign that.
Discussion on that?
I think they've treated us well in the past. When our fire truck went off the roadway and was totaled, there was no fighting with them or replacement value. I think we've only had deer crashes in one cruiser into a mailbox, and there's never been any problem with them paying any deer crash or any vehicle damage to our cruisers. So I think it's worth the allotted value that they treat us, them claims.
We also had an extensive claim regarding a former employee that Otarma
Okay.
covered. The township was, we were proven to be correct, but the legal expenses were covered by Otarma, since personnel related.
Yeah. So yes, I'm on board with staying with Otarma. Dave?
I have no, I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right.
They didn't have Otarma insurance back when I was around. We were looking for that to start back those days.
Well, that's what they said at the OTA conference, and I had heard it before. The reason that Otarma came to be is because townships were finding it extremely difficult to
We
find
were trying
coverage.
to cluster with bigger townships to get a better coverage back in those days. Oh, no. It didn't happen. So I'm glad Otarma stepped to the plate.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I have no problem. I'm all right with it.
Okay.
And the other thing I would like to bring up later in the meeting is a resolution. Once again, we try to not conduct any resolutions in these work sessions. However, the fire chief would like to apply for a grant. In this particular case, should the grant be awarded, it does commit the township to 5% of the cost of the equipment that would be purchased with the grant. Whenever a grant requires a commitment, a financial commitment on behalf of the township, we do seek approval from the board before the application is submitted.
How much is the grant?
He has not decided yet if he's going to ask for radios, which would be about $260,000, or AEDs,
Okay.
which would be a lesser expense.
10,000.
Julie?
It would be fine.
Okay. All right, I'm good with it. We'll just say,
So later in the evening, you'll have the resolution.
okay,
And that's all that I have this evening.
okay. Thank you, Julie. Or Lori, you did it again. Fiscal Officer Julie Joyce Smith.
I have nothing at this time, but thank
Okay.
you.
All right, discussion items. We're going to do these a little out of order for what's on the thing. So if some of the other people are here that with the JEE with number 2 don't want to stay, they don't have to. Continued discussion on possible projects submitted for Butler County Board of Commissioners, local community allocation, ARPA/SLFRE funding. There will be a funding request presentation from JEE Foods. Carter Pate, Operations Director, will be making that presentation. Carter.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm Levi Grimm. I'm the Executive Director for G Foods, and Mr. Pate's joining me. And we have a little pamphlet of information that we'll start passing out here for you. But first, we want to say thank you for considering the request and allowing us to come present. G Foods, we're a student-founded organization at Ross High School. We started about 6 years ago, 2017, 2018, and been distributing excess food from restaurants, grocery stores, whatever it may be, directly back to the community. So we're an entire student-powered company. Through there, we got started as a class project at Ross High School. Our class project at the time was all about how to end hunger and poverty on a global scale. And so we started looking at that from a local scale of how can we start solving these issues. And we kind of looked at the food access issue, recognizing that about 42,000 people in Butler County specifically were going through food insecurity, leading to about a 12% poverty rate. And then the food access issue being, especially in rural towns, not always having readily easy access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And even while you may be able to have it, is that an affordable cost for you and your family? That just depends. So that was kind of the issues we were looking at. And essentially the business model we put forth was food recovery. So we take excess food that's perfectly good, just might be excess, overproduced, something of that nature, directly getting it to those in need throughout the community. So we've been operating, like I said, for about 6 years now. We've done about 8.7 million pounds of food to date throughout the community. This happens with about 80 volunteers doing food pickups throughout the week on a small scale. And then our team, once again, students run every part of the business. So we have people from our marketing team here, finance, operations team. Students do all of it with our external board of directors. And so they manage every piece of the logistics. And then in addition to that, we operate a warehouse in downtown Hamilton where we take in large semi-trucks of food and then pack that down, redistribute it out to about 115 nonprofits right now. So we're working in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, but really the majority of the organizations we serve are right here in Butler County, mostly in Hamilton and then in Ross. And so the organizations that we serve, we work closely with RAM at the administration building or the intermediate school to run a food pantry there. But a lot of the people that we serve in the Hamilton food pantries also receive food from RAM or other Butler County agencies. So really the funding that we're going to ask for the specific project, it's not only going to have the impact in the Ross community, but then there's small pieces of that that may be available to support operations in Hamilton that in turn will then, indirectly support the Ross residents as well. So that's kind of where the organization has done. That's kind of our impact, what it's looked like. Future projects, and really what Mr. Pate's going to dig into and talk about is a mobile market project that we're looking to launch. This is financial support already from the Hamilton Community Foundation. We just need some more funding to get it over the finish line and make it sustainable for years to come. So the mobile market project from a high level is like the Lane Library bookmobile, but for food. It's essentially an ability to go into not only the township here, but then into more of the rural parts of the township and get fresh food to them. And then additionally, a very small portion of the money, if it was provided, will be used just to continue the operations at the Hamilton warehouse. We can accept the large food that in turn will then help fuel the mobile market throughout. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pate, and then we'll let questions at the end.
Yeah, like Mr. Grimm said, the G Foods mobile market is essentially a food pantry on wheels. So many people do not have the time or transportation to come to our traditional food pantry. So that is where we come into play, and we'll be taking that food directly to them and reaching those unaided consumers. And the way that this will be operated is by all of these student volunteers, including myself and Mr. Grimm. And we'll be using food that we already have at G Foods, and we'll be putting it into that mobile market. And then this is a community project, and we have partnered with the Ross Local School District, Butler Tech, the Ram Pantry, and myself and Mr. Graham actually talked to Mr. Greg Young last night to form that partnership with Ram Pantry. And we have looked and identified all of the most in-need areas within Ross in order to help people with the G Foods mobile market. And then furthermore, Miami University, they have also expressed interest in helping us, and they want to partner with us and help us in order to help even more people in the Butler County area. And then to utilize these funds that you guys the ARPA is granting, we're going to be splitting the funds into two main purchases. First, like I mentioned, the G Foods mobile market, and the other part will be operational expenses. So for the G Foods mobile market, we have looked it up and we found information about it. To buy a used one would be roughly $40,000 to $45,000, which would have a large renovation fee. And then for a brand new one, it would be roughly $70,000 to $75,000, which would be most ideal for us because we wouldn't need the renovations. But that's just how much it would cost. And then the other amount of money from this funding would be going to operational expenses, getting food put into the mobile market, and then basically just running things and working everything out. So do you guys have any, or do you want to add something?
Yeah, I would just say the mobile market idea concept, it can seem a little bit new, and with that there may be questions about effectiveness or how the funds would be used and things like that. And the model that we're basing it off of is based off the Free Store Food Bank has a Healthy Harvest mobile market that goes to areas there, and that's what we're basing it off of. We're using their best practices, they're sharing kind of insights with us. So it's not we're trying something brand new, we don't know if it'll work or stick. It's kind of been tested before, and a USDA study a few years back during the pandemic found about 65% increase in the amount of fresh fruits and vegetables that went. And then if you think about then the students that maybe during the summer months don't have access to the free and reduced lunch, getting food there, and then the health benefits that would have too for diabetes, et cetera. So it's just, that's kind of the project that we're looking to do. We're still a little bit early on. We have initial planning, but if there's any comments or if you want specific things to be done or anything like that, we're happy to look into it. But I think with that, any questions we're happy to look into.
So are you looking for any financial?
Yes.
So the money we got from the federal government for $150,000, can we use something like that?
Well, it's the commissioners. We've already allocated 75,000. We're looking to how to spend the additional 75 since we're not able to do our second project.
Okay.
So we have 75,000 on the table is that we're looking to put in the community somehow.
So could we put that, not the whole amount, but I'm just saying, could we take a part of that and put it towards us to help them out?
The full 75 is available. We have 75,000 going to RAM already.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't
Oh,
know.
okay.
I didn't know.
Catching you
All
up.
right.
Yeah, we have 75,000 going to RAM. We had a secondary project with a wellness. The Butler County prosecutors told us that one is not viable.
Okay.
So this is and we need to get our projects nailed down to turn into the commissioners so that we can move on to the next steps.
Okay.
When did you start this project, the JE?
Yeah, we were started at about the end of 2017, official nonprofit status, January of 2018.
Are you aware that your website shows the JEEs closed over at Ross Middle School?
Yes, yes. So the pantry there is temporarily on pause as we work with the Ross and Morgan Ministries to get that reopened, but the location in Hamilton would be open.
Okay.
Has the city of Hamilton donated any of their money that was allocated by the county commissioners? Didn't they receive well over $1 million?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, they haven't put any direct financial support behind it. They've done expertise and other support, but not financial dollars directly.
Are they willing to speak with you in the future about that, or?
Yeah, I think the
Understand.
conversation's definitely open to that.
Okay.
Yep. And the Hamilton Community Foundation specifically would be the ones that provided funds already.
Okay.
The Butler County Commissioners want to make sure that wherever this money goes to someone perfect for, for the ARPA funds. In the event that you use the money for a vehicle of $45,000 to $75,000 and things don't go well, what happens to that vehicle?
Yeah, so with that, there are other nonprofit partners that we have that would express interest in kind of continuing that project and helping run it from there. So if we were not able directly for some reason to do that, then we could bring that over to them. Shared Harvest, the food bank, has expressed interest in potentially taking that on or working together with that. So we could provide it to one of those bodies.
And did you say the students will be driving that vehicle?
We'll have adult volunteers drive it, but students.
Know where I was going.
Yeah.
How is the insurance funded for that vehicle?
So there's two ways that we could do it. Currently, we have a box truck already that we have used. And in that case, for the insurance, it's gone under the Ross Local School District, has insured that vehicle. We could put it on our company plan as well for the insurance too. So that would just be a discussion we would have with the Ross treasurer.
In terms of balance, how much do you think would go toward Ross? Because you mentioned Ross, well, you mentioned Butler County, but Ross and Hamilton primarily. How much would you think would be targeted toward Ross in terms of food?
Yeah, so the mobile market specifically, rough estimate between the numbers Mr. Pate gave would be about 50 to 55,000. So that would leave, if the full amount was funded, about $20,000 to do the Hamilton quote unquote activities or run the warehouse that provides food. And so that's where that money would be used. As a company standpoint, for every dollar donated, we can do about 87 pounds of food right now. So about less than 1 cent per pound of food. So that's where kind of the money breakdown would go. If there needed to be stipulations that needed to be added about the money could only be used for food going to Ross residents or Okeana or Shandon or things, we could definitely adjust the operations to make that work.
I have nothing further.
I want to thank Mr. O'Neill and trustee Michael Birding, who are both here in attendance tonight for overseeing this good organization. And, that's a great thing to do. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
Have you considered a grant from the Ross Community Foundation?
Yes, so not specifically for this project, we have in the past, and we are working on an application for this.
Okay, because it's open now until April 15th.
You'll see it there.
Perfect.
She's with the foundation.
Yes.
So that's, you want to
I strongly encourage you to do that.
take the lunch. Okay. Thank you both for your presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We'll skip to number 3. This will be quick. Gutter guard installation quote. Keith, you had gotten some information on that.
Yeah, through Bernicker Roofing, who replaced our roof. And I did not bring a copy of that. Do you have that, or could you just read off? I'm sorry, it's in front of me. For the gutter guard, it would be on the north and south side of the building. Be $1,230. This is the only bid that I have asked for. I wanted to see where they were at. And I think now, since we're in winter months, we don't have to rush with this project, as we won't see foliage coming off the trees until late September, early October. I feel there are a few other pressing issues within the building that maybe need to be addressed as we approach warmer weather. There are a couple windows that are, one is rotting, the framework is wood, and it sees quite a bit of moisture from rain and any other activity that will blow to the front of the building. I'd like to move that forward in the next few months. And the police department has started working on this little bay out here to create a classroom. And I'm going from memory, even though I've been out there 100 times, that is one of them single pane windows that collapses, I think 3-tier. It's like just having wide open to let any weather through. So if we're going to see the future of that classroom progress, definitely that window, this window out here, and maybe a new garage door to make that better for heat. And of course, we can't air condition out there. We're not set up for that, but definitely to keep heat in there if we're out there. And we've also talked about allowing, we would go out there for our executive sessions versus having to use this room. So I'd like to seek 2 more bids for the gutter, put this on hold a little bit, and in the near future, we walk out there with the other trustees to show them exactly what I'm talking about, those windows, and then seek some bidding on replacing those windows. But yeah, it's, that's the way I'd like to move forward with this. At least 2 more bids, which we did 3 to 5 on the roof. I think that's fair to seek 2 more from some local companies and talk about these windows, and I can get bids are free and then present them when they come in. If that's all right with everyone.
I agree. I agree. So we're going to table that a little bit. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to take a little time. If you want to see how local government works a little bit, you're welcome to stay, but you guys have made your presentation. If you want to leave, we understand. Last week, there was a subject raised about the JED that is currently in place in Ross, and we are going to have continued discussion on the Ross Hamilton JED 1 with legal guidance from Patrick Woodside from Frost, Brown, and Todd. And thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Woodside. I appreciate your time and your education.
My pleasure. Oh, you want me to start off or you want to?
Please.
Okay. So I will just give a quick background so that we're on the same page where we are with this. And so there's less of a misunderstanding. And then I can address any questions you have, any portions of this contract that you may have concerns with, and then, whatever other questions you may have. So just as far as the process, the JED, which is the Joint Economic Development District, exists. At one point, there was notice put in the newspaper. There were 2 hearings, one here at the township, one at the city. Between the time when the notice was put out in those hearings, the contract in full, the map, everything else was available to the public. Notices were sent to every property owner within the proposed JED. They had an opportunity to come to the hearing as well. Petitions were submitted by more than 50%, a majority of those property owners, in order to comply with the rules. Those petitions were signed by those property owners. After those were received, then the township board voted, the city council voted to form the JED. So at the point where we are now, the JED exists. The members of the JED board have been appointed. There was a meeting scheduled for a couple of weeks ago that we canceled because there were some concerns. So I'm here to, hopefully answer whatever questions you have. Without going into all the details, I just want to say first that, put very simply, the JED board does not have control over much at all. The JED board exists as a mechanism to basically borrow the city of Hamilton's income taxing power by the township and apply it to the property within the JED. The money that's raised by that go to the JED. It doesn't go to the JED board. There is a very small amount of it, up to $2,000, that can go for administrative costs. 95% of the remainder, other than administrative costs of the city, go to the township. That money that goes to the township is not controlled in any regard by the JED board. It's controlled by this board here. So whatever concerns there are about the JED board wielding some power that's going to usurp the authority of this board is incorrect. And again, the end result and the net result of the township is that the income tax of the city of Hamilton, most of this document here, everybody I know has some concerns about the length of it. The contract is only 10 to 15 pages. The majority of it is the municipal income tax code of the city of Hamilton that would now apply to the property within that JED. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns you have about the contract. But again, the net result is that there will be an income tax that will be levied upon the businesses, the residents, and others that would be subject to Hamilton's income tax if they lived in Hamilton, or as if they lived in Hamilton if they're within the JED. So, and say one more time, that money, 95% of it would come to the township. You can basically do whatever you want with it. We had some goals in here, I guess, that were, at the time more relevant to use for infrastructure along the road here. But those were not ironclad rules, and it's this board that will have the flexibility to use it for the purposes as you choose. So that's that. Happy to answer whatever questions, concerns you have. I know there's some things on Facebook. I can go through this list here if that will be helpful, and I can answer whatever questions you all or anybody else has if you all would like me to respond to anybody in the public.
Any questions? I got some.
Okay.
Section 3. Do you have the JED contract in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay. On section 3, and probably then mine will be for clarification purposes. To facilitate economic development and create or preserve jobs. That's assuming that the township wants it. Am I correct on that? That as a township, that's something we want done.
Those are the goals of the JED. That is the reason for the establishment of the JED and for the levying of the income tax.
Okay. All right.
JEDs, most of the rules under Ohio law, the statutes have some power derived from the state constitution. One of those that a lot of these, it's called economic development incentive structures. One of those sort of overarching constitutional powers is economic development. That is what allows some of these taxing powers, some of the ability to use some of these monies for purposes other than just governmental functions derived from. And that's why these purposes are stated in this contract.
In section 5, this second paragraph, it says the contracting parties may also amend this contract from time to time to remove an area from the district. Who is ultimately responsible for that? Is that the JED board or the trustee board?
The JED board has no control over it. The contracting parties, so here the contracting parties are the city of Hamilton and the township. So much like the process for including the original areas in the jurisdiction of the JED, you basically go through the same process, whether you're going to remove or add additional jurisdiction or area to the jurisdiction. So for example, if you wanted this 71572L, if you wanted to add additional property owners that would go into the JED would have the same rights as the property owners that were originally put in the JED. So you'd have to put out a notice, you'd have to have the contract available. More than 50%, so a majority of the new territory to go into the JED, the majority of those property owners would have to approve in writing to be put into the JED. If you were to remove property from the JED, you'd have to go through the same process where you would have notice, you'd have a hearing, yada, 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 but obviously there's nobody getting added to it, so you don't need anybody to petition to be added to it because not many people are going to argue against not being in a JED, frankly. So that element of it's gone, but you still go through the same notice, hearing, township legislation, city legislation in order to take that property out.
You said 50% of the owners were
More than 50%.
More than 50% were approved the JED as it exists. That comprises, that's one person. I mean, at this point, that owns 50% of the JED. Correct?
I don't know. We have all the petitions that are signed by more. I'm not sure if it was only 50% that actually signed.
Of the properties, of the total properties.
Correct. The parcels within the JED.
Yeah, well, that's one person that owns 50% of the properties that are currently in the JED, just to be clear. Down in, toward the bottom, third paragraph from the bottom, it may be terminated any time by mutual consent. If for some reason Hamilton wants to terminate it, or if Lost Township wants to terminate it, I don't want to say how difficult would that be. And I'm not saying we want to do it, but if we did and they didn't, then what happens? Page 2, third from the bottom paragraph.
You're saying if you want to terminate it, but the city does not?
Or vice versa.
Basically, you can't terminate it.
Pardon me?
I don't believe you could terminate it unilaterally without the other contracting party.
That's what it says in the contract. So then what would happen? I mean, is that, you're just.
Well, I don't really envision a situation where, you all are in major disagreement. I mean, this is done for the benefit of the township very clearly. I don't know of a situation why, or have any reason why the city would want to stop you from getting the money, but you cannot just terminate it by yourself. So the city would also have to pass legislation to terminate it.
Okay. On page 4 in the middle, which is in section 7, C and D, talks about police, fire, and medical services being provided to the territory of the district.
Yep.
The money that is going to the JED.
Yep.
Is that tax money that is deferred from the township and the schools? In other words, do we not get that money that's in the JED, but still, is this saying we still have to provide services to it?
Well, the services aspect of it really is because of under the rules, it says you have to include in your contract what services would be provided.
Okay.
So this was really just to satisfy that requirement. And all we said here is that the township will continue to provide the same services that they provide to every other piece of property within the township.
Right.
The money that goes to pay it, there's a lot of flexibility here. The money that is coming from the JED, the income tax, you can use that for whatever you want. I'll just say that.
The tax money that the people in the JED are paying.
Yes, if you'd like to do it, if you want to use it for additional services, for improvements, whatever you would like to in that area, within the JED, you can, but you don't have to. If you look at the last sentence in section C, says each of the township and the city may, in each of their sole discretion, contribute distributable revenues, which is the money you get from the JED, or other lawfully available funds towards State Route 128 improvements and related supporting public infrastructure projects. You don't have to do that. You can use it for other governmental operations if you so choose.
Would that then mean this has to be amended? Because it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't say that. And I'm not questioning that it can't be.
No, I just read it right from there.
I'm talking about the money for the school, money that tax money that's in the schools, that's in the JED, that would normally go to the schools. What happens?
There's no money in the JED that would normally go to the school. So this is all additional revenue that does not exist but for this JED. It's only income tax, no property tax.
So the schools are still whole then?
Yes, this has zero effect whatsoever on the school.
There's been discussion that a TIF could be added in or overlaid, I don't know how to call it, in the JED. If that's done, then what happens?
There's no ability to do that here. A TIF would be done by you all by separate legislation, by a separate arrangement with the schools. You can't do it without schools' approval unless you either, basically you can do a 10-year 75% TIF without their approval. Otherwise, you have to go to that. But this does not give anybody any power to do any TIFs whatsoever.
Okay. Page 6, top paragraph. It has to do with, I guess, removal or disqualification of anyone on the JED board.
Yep.
It says for cause. What does cause mean? What does cause? How is cause defined?
Well, it's just defined right here in the rest of the paragraph. It says willfully failing to perform a duty expressly imposed by this contract, willfully performing an act forbidden by law with respect to their office, or failing to achieve the faithful, efficient, and intelligent administration of his or her duties of office as required by this contract or by law, or engaging in conduct unbecoming to such office. Now, I think that you probably want some kind of basis for an action if you want to remove somebody, but I think that's pretty broad as far as your dissatisfaction with the board. But again, I just want to make it clear, the board doesn't have a lot of authority to do much here. I mean, they have not been, I know there's a lot of theories about there, the board can do this, the board can do that. Sometimes they can. This contract, which is not overly robust, you can give them certain powers and certain rights, whatever you want to call it, but we did not do that. So again, I think that's pretty broad as far as, a lot of these things just say something like nonfeasance, malfeasance, misfeasance. This is pretty broad here as far as the way that I read it for you to be able to remove a JED board member. I just don't know of a lot of actions that such a JED board member would make that would cause you that concern, frankly. But this is as broad removal rights as I generally would see.
Okay, on page 8, in the middle, where the fourth paragraph where it says the contracting parties agree that they can grant real property tax exemptions for any purpose permitted by said statutes. It goes on to say to grant all other incentive and real property tax exemptions within the district. That is the JED board that has that authority?
No, that's the township. That's you all as the township.
Okay. This is something I don't understand.
Okay.
I would appreciate clarification. The company that I own is an S corp, so I understand what pass-through is. Any pass-through entity that will not directly subject to a tax-based income on that on income not profits by the district. And then at the bottom, the owners of any pass-through entity will be deemed to be conducting business in district if the pass-through entity is conducting business in the district. Can you tell me kind of what that means?
I think that's basically if there's a pass-through entity that's in the district, they can't escape, when it's a business, you can't say, oh, well, it's just the pass-through here. I don't actually pay taxes because it's a pass-through. I'm say a partner. I live somewhere else.
Okay.
I don't operate out here. So it's just a way to prevent the utilization of a pass-through entity from avoiding the income tax.
Okay.
They're still operating in the jet.
Wasn't sure if it did or didn't. That's what I was asking.
I mean, again, a lot of this will depend on Hamilton's tax code. Their income tax codified ordinance, or whatever they call it. So I don't know every detail of that, to be honest with you.
So in order to perform a JED, you have to have, the municipality must have sewer and water services within a half mile of that,
According to what?
according to Ohio Revised Code, 1715-72. And Hamilton's about 4.5 to 5 miles away.
I haven't looked at that. I can look at it if you want. What section is that in?
Go ahead. What?
What section is that in?
It was 715-72, I2. Is it a different document to
He
form?
has a different document in front of him, Mr. Woodside.
Oh, I brought it.
Okay.
I just have to read I and go all the way through this. So it doesn't say you have to have that. It's just saying that at least 30 days before the public hearing, notice shall be sent and ring to each non-contract municipal corporation that's located within 1/2 of 1 mile of the proposed district. So we don't have a non-contract municipal corporation that's located within 1.5 mile of the proposed district. It's identified in a water or sewer service plan or agreement as a future provider of water or sewer services to the district.
All right, so, and also the JED supposed to be like for a blighted area?
No, it's not. I mean, where's that?
Well, I just heard that. I can't say for sure. I can't see taking an area where it's at right now and possibly putting in hotels there for the benefit of Hamilton.
Yeah, well, this hotel thing, I really don't understand this concern with the hotel. That seems to be a big, the boogeyman out here, and I'm not exactly sure what what is it that why is everybody worried about a hotel coming to the JED?
That question again?
Where is the concern about the hotel coming to?
Well, the concern is right across the street from the high school.
But I mean, why is there why do you believe a hotel is coming to be located in the JED?
The Hamilton has that Spooky Nook up there.
Right.
They're looking for bringing 30,000 people in every weekend.
Yep.
They don't have enough housing up there for hotels.
Yeah.
Hotels could be brought down here, and if they're going to build a 2-story, it's fine, but because our fire truck can handle it. But if they go to a multi-story, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, we don't have a ladder truck. And we can't afford to go buy a ladder truck starting at $3 million.
Yeah, but the JED contract, I mean, I understand if there's a concern about a hotel generally. The JED contract does nothing to change the likelihood that a hotel is going to be located either in this district or anywhere else in the township. It has no bearing on it.
So if a hotel would want to come in, or do we have any say-so in saying no?
You have the same say-so you'd have in saying no, whether the JED existed or it didn't.
Who would approve the commercial development in a JED? Is that still us?
It'd be exactly the same as if the JED did not exist. The JED has no zoning, no approval, no powers whatsoever as far as what is developed. Again, there's this idea that everybody goes and finds all these things that JEDs can do. But when the JED is formed, that is when the powers are granted to the JED by the township and by the city. None of those powers have been given to the JED in this case. If you want to have a JED that's much more robust and you all agree that we're going to build a bunch of infrastructure and you include in here specifically what you want to build, or you agree that you're going to provide utilities, or you agree that you're going to provide additional services, or you agree that you would like to have some zoning requirements that the JED board could theoretically apply, you could include that in it, but none of that has been included in this JED contract here whatsoever.
How many years was this contract good for?
99.
99?
99.
So I was talking to a lawyer up at our convention we just had last week, and he says most JEDs are 20 to 25 years. Why is ours 99?
That's not my experience with them. And most of the time, the townships want them to be as long as possible because they're going to make sure that they want that revenue source, the income tax, to continue as long as they possibly can.
Can that be changed?
Sure. I mean, I don't, you know, this JED contract is quite favorable to the township, more than you'd ever see, that I ever see in other contracts. The contract gives you full annexation. You know, you're able to avoid that 100% in the entire township, not just in the JED area. The breakdown or the allocation of the revenues is very much in your favor. It's 95%, 5%, which is very unusual. There's one thing that the city wants. There's a hotel reference in here that I think there's some confusion about. There's nothing in here that requires you to do anything with a hotel. All it says is that if a hotel were to be located in the district, which again, I don't know a lot of reason why it would, but if it were to be located, the city just said, can you do whatever you can to include it in our community authority? Because they have an additional tax to the community authority. But one, you know, the thing, you'll do whatever is in your power to get that hotel into their community authority is because you don't really have a lot of powers to do anything about getting it into their community authority. You know, if you were to offer some incentives or, you know, do something else to, you know, purposely try to advance a hotel being developed, in that case, you may have some ability to say, hey, if we give you some money or we give you a tax break, you should be in this community authority with Hamilton. But that's the only thing really that Hamilton has asked or really is getting the benefit of in this whole thing. I mean, again, this does very little other than subject this property to an income tax, the majority of which, 95% of which is going to go to the township. You know, in some of this other stuff, Facebook, I mean, this idea that, you know, the JED's controlled by unelected commissioners who are unremovable. Well, we just talked about that. That's not true. They can change or alter zoning at their will. That's incorrect. They have zero ability to do that, to see a whole slate of multifamily dwellings. They have no ability to have any control over that whatsoever. You know, none of this is applicable. JEDs are used in crappy properties without use. Well, that's obviously subjective. What do we mortgage? Nothing's being mortgaged. Small businesses wanting to pay. No, small businesses wouldn't want to pay, but part of that is that the businesses located in the JED would contribute to the cost of some of the infrastructure that would be used by them. And homes will be assessed 10 mils. There's zero property tax. This does not have any effect on property tax whatsoever, whether it's additional tax or diversion of tax or exemption of tax. So I'm not trying to be argumentative. I want to make sure that some of these rumors and
What are the advantages to the businesses and the people that, let's say it's partially residential, to live in the JED to pay for that extra 2% tax? What benefits do they get?
well, directly, they don't necessarily have to get any of it. You know, it's like other taxes that are levied. They can be used and, you know, you are a public board, a public body, you'll have the control over that money. If someone were to come here and say, listen, you know, I pay taxes in this area, I think that X, Y, and Z public infrastructure should be improved or developed, then, you know, that's your obligation to hear them out as an elected official, but you don't have the obligation to use it for any purpose you don't want.
If a small business wants to open within the JED, or they want to open down the street, you know, outside of the JED, what would encourage them to operate in the JED?
It wouldn't be the tax that they're going to be assessed.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the same thing. Why would they locate in the city of Hamilton instead of locating in the township? Well, theoretically, everybody would locate in the township because there's no taxes, but obviously that's not true. I mean, wherever you go, there are different tax structures, different services, different, utilities that are provided. And that's a decision that business owners have to make.
Overall, what would you say the main reason for using it or creating a JED is? Is it
Revenue generation.
and
Taxes.
and development of an area? Or to encourage economic development?
Well, it could be used to develop it. It may be also used to pay for the additional burdens on the township due to development that's coming.
Okay. I guess in and of its name, joint economic development is sort of. So assuming the township wants development, and that's an assumption that I'm not sure is there yet, but this would be the way to do it if they want development. And if they don't, then maybe this isn't something that township would want.
I mean, that's up to you. I'm just telling you that this is a way to generate revenues that the township will have to do with it as it pleases.
Okay.
You guys are the elected people that make the policies. That it's not for me to say.
Okay. Do I have any questions?
So I got one. So in the future, let's say if I'm a landowner and I want to have my land put into the JED, anywhere in this township, I'll just go where I want to go. Let's say the Burns Farm over here, which has been a big controversy, what's happened over there. If they decide to go into the JED, do we have any say so saying yay or nay?
Do you all?
Right.
Yeah, of course. You can just say no.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah, I mean, it has, like I said, if they wanted to be in it or you wanted, they could petition you, but whatever happens, it would be, again, you put notice out, there'd be a hearing. But ultimately, you all have to take a vote to pass a resolution to amend this contract, the JED contract, to add their property to the district, to the JED.
Okay, go ahead.
Laura?
So I have a few questions.
Yep.
You mentioned the income tax to the businesses. So does this include a 2% withholding tax to the employees that work for those businesses that would be in the JED?
It would be, sorry, this is a little bit to deflect, but it would be whatever, as if you were in the city of Hamilton, whatever that income tax ordinance.
Okay.
It will be like literally, we just borrow that power, subject to all of their rules to be the same. And I assume they have that withholding, but I don't want to. Yeah, so it would be.
Okay. And then if residential houses are built in the JED, then those residents are subject to the income tax as well as residents.
Correct. And again, this is like sort of consult your own tax advisor type stuff. But, there's a lot of offsetting. Are you?
We are. That's why I'm asking.
So basically, yes, subject to the sort of offsetting rules if you live here, work here, all that sort of stuff. So again, think of it, you live in Hamilton now as far as income tax.
So just
payments.
food for thought, those new residents would pay Ross School District tax and the JED 2% tax to live there. Who is on the JED board? Do we have a board?
Currently, it's John Fisher and Eric Pullman,
And he's
and he's Hamilton.
yeah, okay,
And Jennifer Patterson is in limbo right now
okay.
till there's another meeting. After that, there would be a business owner within the JED that would be appointed to the board. And at the same time, there would be, I think, an employee that works within the JED that would be appointed to the board. So there's either three, there has to be a quorum. There has to be 3 or 5 people
Okay.
on that JED at a time.
And just to clarify that a little bit. So we have the 3 board members now. You have one appointed by the township, one by the city. Those 2 then appoint a third as the chair. If there's a business operating in it, there is a business representative and employee representative. One of those is appointed by the township. One of those is appointed by the city. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody working there or in the business, but again, as elected officials, you would take those things into account.
Okay.
And you had mentioned that they really don't have much control. What are their duties or what control do they have in this?
In this case, there's not a whole lot. It's mostly an administrative role. And you may say, well, this is stupid. Why do you do that? But the way that JEDs operate, they can be very robust entities that can do a lot for an area. In this case, it's not. And partially that's because, I know there's been talk about the Burns Farm development, other development. Yes, it was created in advance of that. But that hasn't happened. Anything that happened there or anything the JED's involvement would be subject to some other votes later on down the road. But this was really formed for revenue generation to try to address some infrastructure concerns along the way. But again, the board does not have a lot of latitude to do much other than administrate the JED.
Okay.
Somebody's got to keep records. Somebody's got to sort of be responsible and have some body that is representative of the city and the township, and that's the JED.
Okay. And then you had mentioned that real property tax exemptions can be granted by our trustee board. So if we have, for example, in theory, an existing Ross business that is moving into the JED, are there incentives or concessions that can be granted to them that would in essence grandfather in possibly their existing employees or existing level of business? And who would have the authority to grant that? Would it be our trustee board?
Well, let me just say this generally speaking, as opposed to this board. So the general incentives that would be available to the township to provide to business owners, whatever, those are not affected by the JED. You guys are not home. So the powers are somewhat limited of a non-home rule township to provide certain incentives. But for example, if you were to set up a TIF, not arguing you should, just throw it out there, theoretically, that a township board, if it's unanimous, can establish a TIF and they can then utilize the TIF revenues, sort of the diverted property tax revenues, to use to pay for, to reimburse, or do what have you for public infrastructure costs that may be incurred by a business owner. Say you need a turn lane, curb cuts, sidewalks, whatever. That is an incentive that townships can use. But again, that would be only done by this board. The JED board would not do that, and that'd be independent of the JED. If that, to answer your question, sort of.
I think so. I'm not sure that.
There's nothing that could just necessarily just offset the income tax, which I think is what you're asking.
But our dealings would be with the trustees.
Correct. Yes, the JED board is really not, because again, even the money that's coming in from the income tax is really not going to go to the JED board. It's going to go to the township, and the township's going to have that money. Now, again, townships sort of limit what they can do, but they'll have that money to do with, what townships can do with the funds that they collect, which is pretty broad.
Right. Is there a standard as far as the real property exemptions go in a JED?
It won't change from what would normally apply. Meaning that if there were to be well, see, the problem is that non-home rule townships don't have, I think maybe they can do enterprise zones.
Through the county.
Yes, so the county can do that. The law just changed recently, so home rule townships, for example, can give community reinvestment area exemptions to the most common property tax exemption. But here I have to look to see exactly what the township could do. But yeah, like the county can set up a community reinvestment area, for example, and provide exemptions to say incentivize economic development, but to offset some of the burdens of property ownership, let's just say.
I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
I appreciate it.
Keep in mind, those types of enterprises have to be in place before the shovel hits the dirt. That's hugely important.
Okay.
Good questions, Laura.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
The agreement is for 99 years. It was signed on by the previous board and by the city of Hamilton. And you say, if these gentlemen up here say, you know what, we want to get out of the JED. And the city of Hamilton says, forget it, we don't want out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Are they basically stuck? Is the township stuck with it? Or is there any legal method to get out of it? Because the way I read it, the way you described it, is it's basically, we're in this thing for 99 years. And I'm not saying they want out, but there's always that what if. What happens if they do decide to say we want out of it for some reason, to redo it? Or just to not be in it? Because if you're in it for 99 years and it takes both parties to get out of it. I mean, a marriage, I can go divorce my wife.
Good luck.
This is a marriage right here. I can't divorce my wife over in Hamilton now. I'm stuck with her. All right?
Choose wisely.
So why can't, well, I mean, basically, we're stuck. And I don't say I like it or I dislike the JED. I don't know enough about it, but it's the hypothetical. You're stuck is what you're saying. Learn to deal with it, learn to like it. We're good with this now. You as a lawyer, what's the way to get out of it? Or can you?
Again, I'd have to look to see if there's some sort of, if you go, brings, I don't know what you can go to say we're getting screwed here because you're the ones getting all the money.
It's not about, there's nothing, we're not getting screwed.
But usually to force something, you need to show some kind of negative impact, let's just say.
I don't have to show anything if I want to divorce my wife and a negative impact. This is a contract.
Well, it's a no-fault state for divorce, so that doesn't apply to
But
JEDs.
this is a contract.
Yeah.
Almost all contracts have something to allow you out of. What is our something?
Both sides agree to get out of it.
But if one of them doesn't, then what? Basically you're saying if they don't, sorry,
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
okay. There's no, what if they decide, you know what? We're not happy with, I don't know, section 4. I don't even know what the hell section 4 is. They're unhappy with that. We'd like to redo that. What is that process to amend the contract? Can you?
Yeah, you could amend it to do whatever you want. You could terminate it, but Hamilton has to agree. They're the other contracting party to it.
And if they don't agree to amend it to something, you're screwed. No matter what.
Yeah. I don't know why that would happen. I mean, I understand your
I don't
concern.
know why a lot of things happen in life, but shit does.
I know, but my point is that this was entered into with the full vote of the board, with the knowledge of everybody. And that decision was made. There isn't a lot that you have to do here under it at all besides receive money. You have the money, do what you want. And I'd be very, very surprised if you wanted to get out of it, why Hamilton would disagree. I don't represent Hamilton in this. I don't know, but they don't have a lot of benefit from this, to be honest. I mean, when you look at it, and I've done many of these for different cities and townships all over the place. The city basically does it as a favor and takes on the administrative burden. I mean, they're going to be the ones collecting the tax. They're going to be, I mean, they have an administrative fee and the tax comes to you. You say, can we borrow your income taxing power? They agree. So you all are able to establish an income tax in a portion of your township. And that's what the contract does.
So, anybody who opens a business or builds a house, if Burns would be in it, or any residential, you've got an extra 2% coming out of your paycheck then going into that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you move to the city of Hamilton or you move to the city of Cincinnati, you don't move to you said the school district has an income tax. So right, you move to the school district. I mean, when you move there, you're subject to the tax.
Right. Do your research before you move.
Yeah.
That's what, while it's meant to spur development, it can also hamper development.
Yeah, it's a tax. I mean, people use them for different purposes. They exist for different purposes. At the end of the day, the effect right now is that these parcels of property are subject to an income tax once it gets levied by the JED board. But I don't think that the reason we didn't have the meeting is because I don't think there's a bunch of people on the JED board that are trying to go implement something against the wishes of the township board.
But they can't, according to you. They're just there to.
Yeah, but that's why we canceled the meeting. I mean,
Can they implement anything?
Implement what?
You said they're not implementing anything.
They're directed to levy a 2% tax, which is the maximum in Hamilton.
Basically, they meet and say, hey, you're getting taxed 2%. I need a motion to adjourn.
Well, there's some other.
Anything else according?
Well, they have to keep records. They have to adopt bylaws so that they can hold meetings. They have to be subject to.
Right, because they're doing the administrative part.
I mean, the records of, for example, this meeting, when you have somebody who's a chairperson, how do you call a meeting? There's bylaws that dictate that. There's rules about record keeping under the state of Ohio's, laws.
They can't do anything though, right? They can't make a zoning decision.
Correct.
They can't make a different tax decision. They can't approve or disapprove of a business or residential coming into that. They can't levy a TIF, MCA, or any of the other alphabet soup we got going on.
Correct?
So what's the purpose? Besides being in the ORC code, what's the purpose?
Well, that is the
This
purpose.
one.
The purpose is to generate tax revenue for the township.
But what is the purpose of me being on a JED board and sitting there at a meeting?
Well,
I
because
have no purpose,
the rule under, because to get
even if it's
the,
just in the ORC.
well, saying just doesn't make it any less important. Yes, it's because that's exactly what it says. So if they want to levy the income tax, you have to follow the procedures that are in the law.
But I'm just saying, other than, they can't make an MCA, they can't make a TIF, they can't exclude anybody, they can't add anybody else in or anything like that. They have no decision-making power, more or less.
More or less, as far as practical effect.
So they're just there.
They're there to facilitate the levy of the income tax on the parcels in the JED. You have to form the JED board to do that.
Right. But other than that, they serve no purpose.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
Now, again, some JEDs are much more robust and you can give them other powers. This township board of trustees and the city council decided not to give them those other powers, but yet it still needs to exist.
So if the city
this purpose.
decided that they wanted more power than that, does it take 2 members of our township to agree with them, or does it take all 3 to change the JED? So say the city of Hamilton wants to amend it.
Mhm.
And 2 out of our 3 township members are in agreement. Can it be amended with 2 out of the 3 because of the majority? Or does it take all 3 to amend it because it took all 3 to form the JED? So if you need 3 yes votes to form the JED, does it take 2 or 3 to amend the JED?
I'd have to look. I mean, it's not going to matter whatever the rule was to form it. It could have been just 2 that were necessary. It may have been unanimous,
It
but
was necessary. It was a unanimous vote needed to form the JED by the township.
yeah, I could look.
You needed 3 to form it. But, City of Hamilton says we'd like to amend it. 2 out of our 3 say yes. Do we need a unanimous, or do we need 2 out of 3?
I'd have to look to see if it's a unanimous requirement.
So to answer your question a little bit, you mentioned about the previous board. As long as the previous board unanimously voted for it, it eliminated it going to the public
That's right.
altogether.
What?
What's that?
If all 3 trustees agreed to it in the beginning, previous board, by doing that, it eliminates it going to the public to have a vote on it.
If you would have had 2 out of 3, then
It wouldn't pass. If 2 or 3 voted on it, it had to go to the public. If all 3 voted for it, just like city council, if they all voted for it, it eliminates it going to the public for their say-so or their vote.
so the only way to make any changes on this now, since, it has to go back to, the board can't do it, it'd have to go to a referendum, with the voters of the township then. They would only be the ones who would be able to supersede everybody else as to what any amendments would need to be done to it, if any at all.
I'd have to look at that procedurally. I mean, the first time it wasn't an issue. But I don't recall a voting. I'm sure you can, but like anything, have a vote on it if you choose, but again, I don't know if that's.
Again, I don't know if it's good or bad. I've read it enough to know it. But it's one of those things, it's better to have all the answers to all the questions out there in front and to know this ahead of time rather than down the road asking those questions.
Well, they were certainly answered when it was formed, which it has been at this point. It exists.
Right.
But again, I don't think anybody literally has any desire to put this in place against the wishes of anybody in the township or the city. So there seems to be this concern with, I don't know who exactly it is. I mean, this is here for the benefit of the township.
Right.
And I'm trying to explain to everybody that's that. And
No one's against
the downsides.
It's just
And-
questions. I think you're taking it that because the people out here are questioning a hotel, why wouldn't you want a hotel?
I never said anything about a hotel.
you brought the hotel up over here first. I didn't bring it up. No one brought it up. You were bringing it up about the hotel and everything of why would you and stuff like that. I'm just reiterating.
It's because I watched the previous video and there seemed to be a lot of concern among the people that this was going to be what advanced or brought hotel here. And I want to clarify that it's not the case.
Presented to a lot of the public that for Spooky Nook to thrive in Hamilton, we're going to have a hotel. There's going to be so much traffic through Ross. You won't even be able to get through here at 5 o'clock. You can't at 5 o'clock as it is anyway. But Spooky Nook hasn't, materialized anywhere near of what that should have been. And it was always presented from Hamilton and others that a hotel in Ross would be a really great idea.
And I can say I've been privy to those conversations.
Yeah, I'm not saying you were, but there's been a lot of people that, hotel here would be great. And, the hotel is going to benefit who? The hotel's not going to benefit Ross because the money from the hotel tax goes to the Hamilton Authority for Spooky Nook, for the jet. So the hotel is bringing people here, but unless we have a lot of restaurants and.
But just so we're clear, the JED and the income tax from the hotel would still come to you.
Right.
It's a totally separate tax on top of it that would go.
Right, but I'm just saying all the other stuff, all the taxes, any hotel tax on there goes over to Hamilton. It doesn't come to Ross to fund Hamilton's HCA or whatever that is.
That's right.
Right.
It doesn't take anything away from here. You don't have a hotel tax.
No.
Yeah, like I said, this does nothing to help or inhibit the development of a hotel.
Right.
At all.
I agree. I'm just saying the money from there goes to the Hamilton.
Yes, they have an additional tax on it that would go to Hamilton.
Right.
If they were in their Hamilton Community Authority, which you've agreed to do what you can to put it in there, but the township itself can't even force a hotel to be in a community authority.
So who decides if it's in there?
The people that own the hotel.
So they're the ones who would ultimately say, yes, we want our money to go there, or no, we want it to stay in the township. Meaning the taxes, not the income tax, ignore that. I'm talking about all the other things. If the income tax stays here, but any of the hotel fees, like if I go stay, Marriott in Westchester, there's a hotel fee. Anytime you go to a hotel, there's always a fee of something. Those fees that are levied, the hotel decides which direction they want them to go. Not the township or not the.
No, I don't know which hotel taxes apply here. Like, for example, I live in Hamilton County. There's a county hotel tax, a transient occupancy tax, a TOT they call it. That applies to every hotel that's built in the county, no matter what. I don't know what Butler's transient occupancy tax situation is.
Right.
But if they come here and they pay it, it's going to go wherever it would have gone. Every tax that they pay would go wherever it would have gone. It has nothing to do with this.
Right.
This says that the township, to the extent it's able, which frankly, I don't think it has a lot of power to do anything, to the extent it's able, it will use its best efforts to have this hotel be in the Hamilton Community Authority, which is a quasi-governmental entity that has its own, they're called charges, but they're basically taxes. The reason they want it in the territory of the HCA is so that it has an additional charge on it that goes up there.
Okay.
But they could come.
They would levy the charge now.
But they can't just pull you into it. Somebody's got to agree to it. Somebody come here and put a hotel, they could be in it. If they say to you guys, I don't want anything to do with you. I want to put a hotel here. They can put it there. It has nothing to do with the HCA whatsoever. If they came to you and said, I would like a tax exemption, I think according to this, you'd probably say, I'm not going to give you a tax exemption unless you go into the HCA. That's how I read it. Other than you giving them some incentive, basically having some kind of leverage over them. Otherwise, there's nothing you can do to force them to go into an HCA.
Right.
So that's going to be up to the property owner to go into that HCA.
Okay.
I think where Dale was referencing is in ORC 71572, where it says the trustees can elect to not submit the matter to the voters if all the following are satisfied. And bullet point 1 was the resolution approving the JED was passed by the unanimous vote of the township trustees.
Okay.
So I guess that's where, to answer Mr. Selmayer's question, would be, what does it take to amend the JED if it wants to? Is it the same type thing? Is it a unanimous vote or just a quorum vote?
I'd have to look and see.
Okay, fair enough. But that's probably where it is
Yeah, fair enough.
in the ORC.
Ballpark figure, how much money are we talking about with this 2% right now, as things stand right now?
There's nobody in the JED
Nobody.
right now, not yet. There's one business that has bought property within the JED, but nobody's currently operating in it.
And this JED is primarily along 128.
That's where most of the property is located.
Well,
Does that do anything, in reference to the state's maintenance of State Route 128?
Basically not a thing. State of Ohio, if growth happens in here,
Yeah.
we talked about this 2 years ago, growth happens in here, ODOT's coming to Ross Township and say, hey, what are you kicking in? They're never going to pay 100%. To revamp, let's say the business starts happening along IGA Court, all the way down here to the end of the property of the Burn Farm. And State of Ohio comes in and wants to revamp the intersection of Wade Mill, IGA Court, and 128. They want Ross Township to kick in some funds. They'll not pay 100%. They're always going to want the local entity to be a partner in that.
I know from my experience with the utility company that if we had to do work on a state highway and it was within a township and not within the city limits, then we were permitted to do that work in the township by permit. If we were in the city, then it was a completely different story. There was a completely different set of rules.
Correct.
Wondering if that set of rules, since we're now a JED, does that set of rules come all the way through now? That
No,
the
because
city of Hamilton has?
No, because the city of Hamilton is basically just taking care of the administration part of that JED. That's where their 5% comes in. Their 5% of their taking is for them to collect the taxes and be able to cut us a check. That's what their 5% is.
Oh, excuse me for being skeptical, but I just
Please.
wonder what the hell's in it for the city of Hamilton.
They're doing you a favor, to be honest with you. I mean, they're going to get their,
I don't see an upside for the city of Hamilton.
if they get 5%.
There's really not, because when this all came about, when Township Administrator Bass was here, and St. Clair Township wanted Ross Township to join into a lawsuit against the city of Hamilton because of annexation. We got that put in part of the JED that Hamilton won't come after any part of property in Ross Township. We stopped that annexation. They might come at our corners up at Orville Road or down by Smith or coming up 128. We stopped them from doing that, and they agreed to it. I think they, somewhere along the line, it was possibly said that they didn't read that fine print, but they signed it. But they also, in other entities, correct me if I'm wrong, they get more of a percentage just to handle the administration work and took care of us at 5% versus what, could possibly 10, 15%?
25, or even, I've seen up to even 50.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, it depends on how, it's very different. Some of these have more tighter restrictions on what you can use the money for. They want it to be used for things that are mutually beneficial. Here, like I said, I mean, I think that they were saying, okay, we'll do this, because we think it's, they have a few of them. They do this with a few different townships around, as do many other municipalities, to allow them to generate revenues per the request of the townships.
What's your name? We see each other walking in the morning. What's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
Tom.
Tom, it's good to meet you. You asked about the properties that were within the JED. I can tell you that six of them are on School Road. They are small residential lots. If you drive down School Road, you'll see empty spaces. Those are in the JED. There's a smaller one that's on Lehigh Road that is in the JED. Those 7 are owned by Burns Farm LLC, which makes up 50% of them. 2 of them are owned, one of them is owned by this man right here, Vic Waldriff. Another one is owned by Bowling, which his company, I don't know, who precisely owns it at this point because of his unfortunate passing. Martin Marietta and American Aggregate own 2 other ones. And then Welch LLC owns three of them
Good size portion too.
up on 128. I have a map here, if you're welcome to see it. Okay, all right. Well, those are the properties and who owns them.
So what he said before about an annexing of properties into the JED, that would be up to you three people?
Annexing?
No, they were talking about annexing with Hamilton. If Hamilton was
That would
annexed.
be,
No, I'm talking about.
Adding properties to the JED.
To the JED.
that would be up to us.
Okay.
Yep.
And Hamilton, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, if there were to be a business operating on a property that were to be proposed for inclusion in the JED, you have to have over 50% of the property owners too, or sorry, the business operators within that area as well to vote for it, which is not likely. So.
Say that again?
If you, let's say some of these were all chosen originally, there were no businesses operating on them.
Right.
If businesses are operating within property that's to be included in the JED that you're proposing or, you know, hoping to be included, you have to get 50% of the property owners in the area to be added to the JED as well. They have to approve.
Okay.
Which is not likely.
A lot of good questions and a lot of good information tonight, I think. Anybody else have questions? Mr. Woodside, thank you for your information. I think it was very enlightening, and I think we all learned a lot.
Don't be offended. We weren't against you.
I'm not. I just want, I mean, I'm here. I represent you all. I just want to make sure that some misinformation doesn't influence your decision.
Be clarified.
I want to make sure that, you know, you see the benefit of it. I understand that not everyone's in favor, but I want you to make informed decisions about it. And I would ask, you know, I've been a lawyer for a while. Again, I don't think anybody wants to do anything that is against the wishes of the board. So I think that whatever road you want to go down, we can explore what the potential, you know, and ability to do so is, but we should, you know what that is so we can explore it and figure out what votes are needed or what approvals you need to do whatever it is that you prefer to do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come here
time.
this evening.
No, it's my pleasure.
Discussion items, anything else from the board?
Have none.
Expedited legislation. Electric aggregation bid results review and recommendations. Rich Suris from Energy Alliances.
And I?
I asked him earlier.
Beer.
Before Mr. Suris speaks, if any of y'all from JEE want to leave, we understand if you want to watch your government work, you know, by all means, hang around.
You're not going to offend anyone. Oh.
Mass exodus.
I know, but
I wanted them to stay and listen.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
He gave a heck of a
Okay,
He knows this place.
Yeah.
Like creative.
Yep.
A young entrepreneur.
For sure.
Thank you, board, for having us out again tonight. We've been here obviously a few different times throughout the process of aggregation, and we're getting towards that end line. So, what we have tonight is the results of the RFP that we ran over the last couple of weeks. So I wanted to share that with you tonight, and then to propose some legislation so that we can actually get these prices locked in for you. So we received those bids earlier this week. See the criteria to do that. We wanted to make sure that these prices were going to be competitive against Duke's default rate. That's the main thing. We looked at terms of 12, 16, and 24 months. So the 12 and 24, pretty standard 1 year, 2 year. And then we looked at 16 months because that would get you through a second summer. Because if this starts in May of this year and you only need 12 months, you're in May of next year. So we said, well, what does it look like to kind of extend it a few extra months and get it through the summer when a lot of your residents are going to be using energy. I want to make sure that we get a free and easy opt-in, opt-out period, way to do it. No termination fee so that people can leave the program at any time. And look at the ability as well of layering on potential renewable energy. So we see a lot of communities kind of looking at that as part of their mix. Some of them use it as you have the default as non-renewable energy, and then if people who may want to pay a premium do that. So we added that as well because it's easier for us to add it at the beginning, and then you have that decision than to go back to them after the fact. So we sent this out to 4 suppliers. We did receive 3 bids back. We had, discarded the highest one, so we're sort of left with 2. We have a page here of summarizing what those, results look like. Energy Harbor, clearly the cheapest price across the terms. So the way we have this table set up too is no matter what the program, you're looking to start the program on the May meter read, which would be the June bill. So the 4 columns we have there, the very far column to the left would be the 12-month term. So that would say things started in May of 24 and ended in May of 25. The next option is if it started in May of 24 and ended in September of 25. So that's that option to get you through the summer. And then the 2 columns on the right, the same time periods, but if you wanted to look at, potentially having that renewable energy component to it. So let's talk about sort of those 2 components. So we have, a lot of communities that mix and match how to do that. So we'll have communities that will use, again, I'll say the column on, the 2 columns on the left, right? They'll use that as the default. So people who take, get a letter, they take no action, they would get, one of those prices. And then for people who, are willing to pay a little bit of premium for, for the amount of sustainability, then those people would call and take action and say, okay, I want to pay for the renewable energy. So where does the renewable energy come from? It's 100% national wind, and it's more of a financial instrument. It doesn't change the electrons that are going to anybody's house. Right? We're here in Ohio, so it's coal, it's gas, it's nuclear. But what it does at this point, we're making a recommendation to move forward with Energy Harbor. Energy Harbor would go out every year and they would purchase what's called a REC, a renewable energy credit. It's a financial instrument that the renewable sources have that they can sell to people. That the idea is that, they sell that, they take that money and then they develop more, in this case, wind energy. So again, it doesn't change any of the makeup of what's there, but the money is used by those renewable sources to generate renewable energy. So the decisions tonight then are, do you want to look at the 12-month term or really the 16-month term? And if you'd like to look at, potentially having that renewable energy option as part of your contract. So our recommendation based on those prices is going with Energy Harbor. Again, if you asked us which one we would choose, really where that price is, that base price, the aggregation rate of the 621, getting you through 2 summers, it's pretty good. I mean, your residents haven't paid less than 621 for a summer and 3 summers now. Right now, this past summer, they paid 9.7. Actually, they paid 10.17 in June. They paid I think it was 9 3/4 for July and August. So this is some pretty substantial rates, for your residents, even through the winter too. So pretty well. Even looking at what's available in the market, so even though this was from a couple of days ago, it's still the same. If somebody went out to the Public Utilities Commission, because they have a website where people could shop for offers. So if people wanted to, somebody wanted to go out and shop on their own, the cheapest price that they could find for a similar product, so again, no termination fees, at least 12 months, monthly fees, was 6.28. So, in this case, you're able to offer your residents a better price than they can go out and, if they were trying to shop on their own. So again, another benefit there. We would need to refresh the pricing before executing the contract. I did get pricing from them, refresh pricing again this afternoon. They're still here. So if you agreed to allow your administrator to sign a contract, let's say tomorrow morning, I don't see a big change from this afternoon to tomorrow morning. So I would expect prices are going to be right here, if not maybe even a little bit better. But we did ask, as far as the resolution was an at or below, because when Laura and I spoke earlier in the week, at that point, there were 4 business days between when we talked and there. It's commodity, it's no different than the gasoline, price is changing. So because you needed to finalize materials, we built that buffer in, but we were obviously transparent with you with the price. The prices as of this afternoon were the same. So even though we're asking for that at or below, we should come in significantly lower than that. Again, make the recommendation to give your administrator the authority to sign a contract with Energy Harbor, as long as it's lower than 6.5 cents. And then, to make that decision if you want to add that renewable energy to it. I believe your lawyers have already looked at the contract and said it's good. And, I'll say the same contract has been entered into Westchester, Liberty. They use the same exact contract from Energy Harbor as well. So very comfortable with the language that's in that contract. So in typical fashion, I said a lot of words very quickly, so I'll take a breath and let you ask questions.
So years ago, I was with First Energy before they got caught paying $61 million household. Is there still a transmission cost as well?
So this is only for the generation cost of the bill.
Okay.
So, and again, this would only be for those that are on Duke. So if you have anybody on Butler Rural, this doesn't count for those folks. So for the Duke bill, if you look at it now, you'll see those delivery charges for Duke. You still continue to pay those. So Duke's in the business of delivering the power. They got out of the business of the commodity up and down portion of it. I was actually working for Duke at the time I was part of that sale. Their shareholders don't like the up and down crazy. Well, they like when the commodities are, high. And, they love that business then. When the commodities went down, their shareholders don't like that. So they got out of the commodity portion, but we still pay Duke for the delivery portion of the bit.
I know at least 40% of the people sitting up here right now some have Duke for gas and some have Butler Rural for electric.
Yep.
What does this do for people who kind of have a split energy?
Yeah, so the people who run Butler Rural, it actually has no impact at all.
Okay.
Because they're not even gonna get an option to do this because those, at least the way the state says it now, those that are on a co-op, they just don't get the opportunity.
So it's only Duke.
Yep. And right now it's only for the electric.
Okay.
Even though you are certified to do gas, we're not looking at that just yet because right now, kind of heading into summer, the focus is the electric. We'll start to look at the gas as we get into the summer.
Okay.
The risk profile around the electric versus gas is very different. So we'll revisit that ahead of next fall to see if there's even something worth doing.
For the average house, it's 2,500 square feet, and I know this is a hard question to answer. What's the difference between 6 cents and 6.2 cents?
Yes, yeah. So we'll use the average home, right? That uses 1,000 kWh. That's what Duke uses as their ballpark. So the difference between, did you say 6 and 6?
Well, I see Energy Harbor here. If we say May 25th, May of 25 or September of 25, it's 0.06 or 0.0621
About $2
a month.
Yep. So yes, so by taking that higher price, yes, somebody is paying a $2, on average $2 more than the first one. But again, gives you that security of that second summer, right now, which I think is important.
So for those extra 4 months, it costs them $8, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
I just got an electric bill for $600 for that last one. $600.
How big's your house?
2,200 square feet.
Mine's bigger than that, and that was 189.
Yeah.
You need to move by me. Jeez, well, Pete.
I about died.
All right.
I heard that from quite a few on Facebook, the electric bill.
I've seen that.
These electric bills, I'm in the business. I've been doing it for 20 years. I got a text from my wife yesterday. She's like, is our bill right? And, it was. I'm not immune to it. And I do it every day. It's the highest bill we've ever paid in our house. So bills recently have been painful for everybody.
We keep our house at a solid 58, so, that's why we're just cheap. I'm kidding.
Your savings will be a little bit less.
Yeah. Okay.
Bridget Hauser.
I have a name.
I have a friend who's a frigid Hauser.
Okay. All right. So any questions?
I have none.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So Energy, Harbor, whoever it was, they're at 6.5.
Yep.
Let's say in 7 months, electricity drops quite a bit. Is everybody locked in at 6.5, or will this ever be renegotiated before the 17 months?
No, that's a good question. So first thing is no termination fee, right? So people can leave, nobody's held to this, no matter how long the contract is, nobody's held to it.
Right.
So people can leave at any point. So Duke, the way that they procure their prices, they run an auction. They run 2 auctions a year to set their prices. So they ran, and their planning year is June of one year till May of the next. So we already know this upcoming June, so that would be the first bill that you guys have from June of this year till May of next year. The first auction they ran in the fall was at 9 cents. They run another auction next week. Markets come down a lot, but they had procured 65% of it at the 9 cents. So we've run some estimates that even if this one next week is at 6 cents, still the math says that this thing is well above 8 cents starting in June. You know, so yes, Duke has some little fluctuation, but we feel very certain that the price from June of this year till May of next year is going to be, you know, 8 cents or higher, which gives that
But I'm
savings.
saying though, if, who is it, the Energy Harbor?
Energy Harbor, yeah.
If they're able to get it cheaper later on, will that ever be passed on, or are you stuck with them for 17 months?
Yeah, we may look, depending on what happens with the market. Really, at this point, we're trying to compete against Duke, right? We're trying to give people an easy option because, you know, what you find is 60% of the people here in the township have done nothing, right? So you see, so you're trying to find an easy
Harbor
option.
has cheaper rates out there now.
So they're at the 628. So they were the cheapest one at that 628. So, you know, right now, you know, we're actually beating what we're able to, you know, what we're able to negotiate with them through the aggregation was cheaper than what they were, you know, offering out there. But yet again, if the prices fall, and whether it's Energy Harbor or Acme, it doesn't matter. You know, people can always go, you know, shop for that price.
You can, if you get opted into this, you know, with an 81-year-old mother, I don't catch it. She gets opted into it, and then I can get her a lower rate 3 months from now. I can get out at any point, and then I could put back into this.
Yep, we only work with suppliers that will let people come in or out at any time at no cost.
Where it used to be you were penalized for leaving.
I've changed electric suppliers 3 times in the last 4 months. I'm down to $5.95. And my gas is even lower, I mean, $4.9 something, so.
Yeah, so this, and this, I'll be clear, the 628, yes, there are prices lower than those, shorter term.
Yeah.
So we were just making a comparison of at least the same term as the aggregation. But yes, there are cheaper prices if, you know, like, you want to stay at it.
Trying to go get gas right now is not going to work well because everybody's using gas. You know, trying to get electric in June is not going to work well because.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Just one
Tom?
clarification. The revenues are going to be collected by Duke, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Yep, you still pay a single bill to Duke. They're the ones who, you know, settle up with.
They give the money to Harbor.
Energy Harbor. Yep, they settle that. So yeah, still just a single bill from Duke. You don't change anything. If you're on budget billing now, you still take care of all that. You just think it doesn't change any of your service. You have an outage, you still call Duke. You've, you know, really at this point.
What's the problem with what's going on in Colerain Township right now? Where they're getting double billed and you didn't opt out or you did opt out and, you know, and they're paying Duke and then they're paying the other energy company and, you know, and it's not my fault. The other one says, well, it's not my fault either. And, you know.
Yeah, I'm so much sure what's going on. I've not heard that.
Pretty much on social media, Colerain Township agreed to aggregate, and that's the problem that they're having right now, is that some people didn't opt out or wanted to opt out, and they were getting double billed. They were getting a bill from Duke, and then when they got their next bill, it was added on from whatever energy company
So we help manage the program for, and, you know, I guess if we could talk on the side because it's something, but I mean, there's definitely no double billing there. It would be the same. The stuff that's happening in Colerain, the way it's billed would be the same way that you would be billed here.
We have friends that live down there, and they're talking about their bills going from $100 something up to $600 and $700, and they're getting double billed and they can't get out of it.
So, yeah, so that wouldn't be true because both their gas and electric has no termination fees, so they can absolutely, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Suri. Expedited legislation. Electric aggregation bid results, review and recommendations. We've been through that purpose. Enter into an agreement for electric aggregation. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2024-007, authorizing the township administrator or a designee to enter into an electric aggregation agreement with Energy Harbor LLC, provided that the accepted aggregation rate is at or below 6.5 kilowatt per hour at the time of execution for a period not to exceed 17 months. Need a second.
Need a second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes. Purpose, authorize the application for assistance to firefighters grant program funds through the United States Department of Homeland Security for portable radios or automatic external defibrillators for use in the fire department. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2024-008, authorizing application for a grant from the United States Department of Homeland Security for its assistance to firefighters grant program, funds to purchase and acquisition of equipment, and authorizing the fire chief to execute any required documents in connection with the grant application. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes. Public participation.
Anybody left?
We have had a lot of that tonight, haven't we? Save the speech. Executive session. Move for the adoption of motion number 24-027 to retire to executive session to discuss the appointment of a public employee in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1. Time?
7:35.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes. There will be no further information discussed when we come out of executive session, so
Thank you
we
all.
will just.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you.